Will you click? Oh, I just got check it. Scott, will you check YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Craig, you want to do one of the two?
Will you?
duties?
Sure.
Which one?
I can do pledge.
Okay.
Will you click? Oh, I just-
Good, Raj, you want to do the prayer? Okay,
All of a sudden, it just got hit by it. It's like this person's
We should be good, Mayor.
okay.
So my son said, "Oh,
All right, welcome to the North Logan City Council meeting for October 18th, 2023. We are still waiting on Buzzy, who plans on being here tonight, but he will be here a little bit late. We will start with a pledge led by Craig, after which Roger will give us our opening prayer.
We stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then Father, grateful for this evening, grateful for this beautiful fall time of year, the beautiful place we live in, thankful for the meeting agenda before us. Help us to have good discussion and decision making. Grateful for all those volunteering for the pumpkin walk, and ask for life safety during the next few days as it's busier and it all may go well and smoothly in New City, sing to Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you both. We will begin with adopting tonight's agenda. I would entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Motion by Craig, second by Emily, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. No minutes to approve today. Then we'll go to follow up on issues from previous meetings and review of action items.
Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. They're not up on the screen, but we'll jump through several of these items. Obviously with the Civic Center, we'll go over that a little bit later in the meeting. Jumping down through here, the water. They're still doing the hydrant flow test, but they're finalizing several of the items for the water model and water master plan. Both of them, they've just been in kind of that review stage, and their finalization stage is taking place right now. Should be done before the end of the year. And they're about a quarter of the way through the well house right now. The well's already been dug, but then they're just putting the well house on top of it, and they'll put the motor and pump on that shortly. Jumping through here, we're finalizing our DEQ actual bond that we received this past year. Streets, they finalized that 2180 rebuild. We actually only have, I think, 1.5 more roads. It used to be 10 to 12, but there's only about 1 to 2 more roads that would need a complete rebuild now. So that's off to the streets department for going through that. Along with that, though, we did receive the grant as up to the mayor, the roads department, and engineering and public works that put that together. We received our COG, or we were basically, I don't know the best way to say this. We received positive approval from the COG for our funding for 600 East. The developer will put in the portion going from 2500 north to about 2400 north. And the COG will help pay, along with North Logan City road impact fees, from 2400 to 2200 and help install that sidewalk along. It's actually a removed paved path along the east side of that road as part of the safe route to school. And so we did receive that funding, or at least the positive recommendation. They'll go to county council for approval in the coming weeks. So it's a competitive process, and hats off to the departments that put that together and received that funding. Jumping down through here, stormwater, they'll do general cleanup over the next few weeks in preparation for the winter months. Engineering, they'll work on the COG project, 2500 North 8th East roundabout. They're still working on with UDOT. 12th East, they're still working on. So there's several different projects along with the water and sewer projects throughout the city.
Just really quick, what was happening on 8th East, just south of 25th?
That is the water tie-in for the south portion of Smiling H subdivision. So they have a portion of their road that comes out on the 8th East right there. And that is one of their water tie-ins. They're tying the culinary water onto 8th East at that time. That should be wrapped up today, from what I understand. If not, they'll just have to put plates on the ground because we have to open up for the pumpkin walk, which will start tomorrow.
Okay.
You know, the meeting is. You can see it.
Yeah.
It is up, so.
Jumping through here, parks, they're heavily involved in the pumpkin walk this week. They have their new shed. Things have gone well with carving and setting things up pretty smoothly from what I hear. And so they've taken a heavy step in getting everything lined up for the pumpkin walk, which should go really well in the coming days. And there's several departments involved in that. In fact, just a thanks to rec, parks, public works, roads, police. They're all heavily involved in the pumpkin walk and helping that with the countless volunteers that make that happen. Jumping down through trails, we applied for that grant for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. We'll probably have meetings in the coming weeks with Hyde Park and Smithfield, trying to coordinate the trails that goes north. We've had a couple of meetings in the past week, so that should go well. We've had some discussions regarding some of the canal trails and just working with those property owners that live adjacent to those canal trails. So we'll have a few more meetings probably in the coming weeks, I would imagine. Recreation, obviously heavily involved in pumpkin walk, but also pumpkin days, meaning the pumpkin walk this week. And then this Saturday is also the pumpkin palooza. That's the pickleball tournament. The following Saturday, they will have the or Friday, sorry, we'll go over these at the end of the meeting, but the pumpkin smash derby, that's the Hot Wheels derby, where they smash pumpkin or smash balloons on each other's vehicles down at the HSC building. On Saturday, they will have the pumpkin toss, pumpkin drop. Sorry, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. End of the month, the pumpkin toss, pumpkin drop, and the pumpkin carnival, which is down at the high school. So all three of those will be on that following Saturday. It should be pretty exciting, each of those events. That's a lot of work that recreation department has put into each one of those, along with the other departments helping out. Jumping down through cemetery, they're wrapping things up as far as the secondary water, which is working well for the cemetery. That should be a big, that should alleviate considerably the demand in culinary water throughout that area. Community development, they need to finalize several things regarding SB 174. And Scott will probably go over this evening, starting out with the schedule and timeline for the general plan. We've had a preliminary meeting with the contractor to go over that. And so in the coming weeks, watch for that. There'll be several things just gearing up, communicating what's going to happen in the next few months, and then reaching out to the public to get endless public information and how that's going to take place regarding the general plan rewrite. Economic development, there's several things in the works right now. Treasurer, she's mainly just helping get the waste management set up, and thanks to the mayor, to her, to the entire staff that are putting together that transition. It's going very, very well. The other thing that is going to bring up the treasurer, business licensing, human resources, and the recorder are working on heavily right now is the annual audit. So every year we go through the annual audit for the next couple of weeks, and then in November they'll come and report on that, and later November regarding the audit. And hopefully things go well. They've gone well the last several years, but that involves several different departments. Library, there'll be some other updates coming up. They do have the Harry Potter party. I think the date is the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And so we'll look at that at the end of the meeting. We'll talk about that. Police, they have several full-time officers in training and in different steps going through that process. And then there'll be interviews for the code enforcement officer this week that they've set up. And then fire department, the new station's coming along. And then I sat down with Chief and we went over kind of a plan to talk about something pretty innovative to replace the ladder truck in North Logan City, working with Logan on that. And it could work out very well, but that'll be in the next few years, working through that. And those are the general updates right now. I brushed over several items. Are there other questions regarding anything in particular?
I don't think so. Any questions from the council? Okay, thank you, Alan, for that. Okay, we'll continue on with the Employee Leadership Award. For once, I don't get aced out by the screen. Only I have this information. Today's is Dylan Matthews. He's our economic development intern. He's been with the city for 2 years and quietly goes about doing his job of getting to know current businesses and determining their needs, as well as reaching out to potential new businesses and explaining the benefits of locating to North Logan. He's also instrumental in organizing with Business Alliance luncheons, where North Logan businesses are invited to network with peers, get to know the city staff that they will be working with, and of course, have lunch. Coming together, strengthening business ties, and paving the way to success in North Logan are the ideas he works by. He has represented the city well in his position. Thanks, Dylan, for making a difference. I'll add my 2 bits to this. Working with Dylan is really fun, and he does a phenomenal job of coordinating quite a bit of things behind the scenes. And the business owners that we meet with always seem to know him quite well. So he does a really great job with that. My goal in the next few months is to get him on the radio. He always schedules those appearances for me, and my goal is to get him behind the mic for that. So anyway, let's give Dylan a hand of applause. Okay, now we are sad today to be saying goodbye to Chief Hannig, who has done a phenomenal job on behalf of North Logan. We claim him as one of our own, as a citizen of North Logan, and feel like we've always been really represented well, even though you represent many cities. Chief, we really appreciate the work you've done for North Logan and for making our fire department just second to none in the city. So we'll turn some time over to you and let you introduce the interim chief.
Thank you for the kind word there. It is a little bittersweet for me. As I am a North Logan resident, and I care about how our fire department is functions and takes care of the citizens here. It has been a pleasure to work with each one of you, get to know you better, and to be able to provide this service for you, and we will continue to do so. And I'm proud to introduce you. Chief Thompson wants to come up for a second. Introduce Chief Thompson. He's been my operations chief for the last couple of years. He has the respect of the group, the firefighters, and me as well. Yeah, so I feel confident leaving the department in good hands under his guidance over the next few months until he has the chance to compete for the final position, which I hope that he'll have a good shot at that. So I wanted to introduce him to you. This will probably be my last council meeting. Unless you'll buy me back as a normal citizen. So you're aware, I've shared with the mayor, I know Greg knows, but I have taken a position with Utah Communications Authority as deputy director. So I'm leaving the fire service after 31 years and moving into another realm of emergency services, more of a backdrop. So hopefully the radio and that once it's going to continue to function better than before. That's all. So thank you again for all your hospitality and kindness toward me. Again, as I am the most organized, I will make sure that we'll continue to provide everything that is there. So thank you again.
All right, thank you. Chief Thompson, do you want to say a few words? You're welcome to.
Not sure how much you want me to share, but
You have 30 minutes.
I'm good at clockwork. No, thank you for the opportunity. Just a little bit about myself. I live in Smithfield. My fire service actually began as a volunteer in Smithfield. I volunteered here in North Logan from about 95 to 2000. I took a job in Logan City fire in 2003. I've been there ever since. Maybe some unique things. I have worked in every position of Logan, firefighter, EMT, for now the operations position. I think that, I would just like to say, obviously, you've seen this, results that you get. The fire department is on a great trajectory, got a great training program. North Logan is supplemented in fire response, at 3 additional stations, manpower from those stations. So it's a great system to have. It took a lot of time and effort on everyone's part. So I think we're in a great spot. I'm gonna be interim for a few months. Happy to share we made, I just all to learn from you guys as well. Again, we'll just see what shakes out here in a couple of months.
Okay, well, welcome. We appreciate you coming tonight and we know you'll do a great job. But let's give Chief Hannig a hand of applause. All right. Thank you, Chief and Hannig, and he assured me that he'll be in a position where he can make good policy on behalf of North Logan. So we're excited for your influence to continue. All right, we will move on to our action items, starting with a public hearing to receive public input on a proposed resolution to amend the master fee schedule as it relates to construction-related fees, encroachment permit fees. The city council may consider approval of the resolution following the public hearing. Scott or Alan, do you want to give us background on this?
I can run through this. Jordan put this together with Scott Bennett. I'll take a crack at it. What this is really the encroachment permit process. When someone comes in and they want to do construction in the city and they want to use the city's rights of way, there's a process that they go through that's kind of been formalized. And so as you look through these different updates, I'll kind of explain it because it's not up on the screens, but the what it is you have an existing fee and it's called a penetration of asphalt fee. And what that is it's a $1,000 non-refundable fee. So if they're going to come in and they're going to chop up the road or do anything, it's $1,000. They have to pay an additional deposit of $500 on top of that. So that's for an area under 300 square feet. If it's over 300 square feet, it's basically that fee based off of a $3.50 per square foot. So they do a big swath through the road. It's based off of that fee right there. The $500 is the deposit that's put down, and the city holds that for a year. It's all explained in the application for the encroachment permit. These are just the actual fees in this fee schedule. But after a year, if the road hasn't settled, if there's no other additional issues, then the $500 is refunded to the applicant. What you're looking at here are additional fees that, as we've gone through this, many of the other cities have these fees in their fee schedule. And so it's bringing up to date, like with what Logan, what Hyde Park, what several of the other cities have in some element, and basically similar to what their fees are. We didn't want to go higher or lower. We just basically wanted to keep it even, so that when someone comes in, a contractor or anyone else, they follow kind of the same process. But what this is a new road cut permit fee. So I'll give you an example. What that means is it's under 3 years. So 3100 North. If someone were to come into that road and they wanted to cut the road and do some work, the reason that's so expensive is because that road is forever damaged after that point, and it'll never recover. It's always has a flaw in the road. No matter how well you are at matching in asphalt, it will not tie in seamlessly. And so that's why that fee is elevated to $5,000. The other reason that is so high is because when we do construction, we reach out to all the utility companies, all the residents, everyone along that road, and say, if you're doing anything, now is the time to do it. So while we cut open the road, while we do all this construction, come in and do any construction that you need to do during that time at a very cheap rate. And we have several utility companies where we let them know. And sometimes some utility companies are very on the ball. They're out 1 or 2 months later and they do all of the work. And they tie it in with what we're doing. It's seamless. It's very inexpensive for them. If they wait and they just ignore us, and then we install the whole road and they come back in a few months later, we want to discourage that. And so that's what that fee is intended to discourage. The other thing that you see there is it's called a narrow trench fee under 6 inches wide. That's actually a micro trench, but the construction term is a narrow trench. And that's just a cost per linear foot. What that's for is for a utility company like Fiber. Fiber is the one that uses this the most, is a micro trench. They come in and the trench is under 6 inches wide. It's usually 3 inches wide. They put a tiny trench in the road. They go about a foot and a half down, and they put in the utility through that small hole, and then they come back in and backfill it. A boring permit fee. So we require several of the utility companies to bore. What that is they go underground. They go in like the park strips, and you'll see them pretty often along Main Street, but in North Logan, you'll see them where they bore under the road and then they daylight on the other side of the road. But when they do that, there's usually some damage to either like the sidewalk, some other area. And so we have to put a fee in there. And so we also know where they've come in and they bored. We need to know where the utilities are located so that when we do construction, we don't damage those. The other one's a pothole fee. That may sound funny. It's not what you're thinking, not potholes throughout the city. This is a test hole. So when they come in, they will take a core out of a certain portion of the road to see what the base is like. But when they do that, they've cut a hole in the road. And so what that is a potholing fee. So then they go through and they sample a road. That's what that fee is for. The last one that's kind of it seems odd. It's a third-party inspection fee. That would be for a fiber network that's coming in or a utility network citywide, where the city does not have the manpower to go out and inspect every last foot of what they're installing. So we'd pass it on to a third party in a competitive bid. The third party would come in, they would monitor all of the construction, and then they would give us a bill and we would pass that on to the network provider for that. And so those are the new proposed fees. The application would be updated accordingly. And so that's basically what it is in a nutshell.
Okay. Okay, well, we will start with a public hearing. Marie, if we have a microphone, how's that looking?
Whatever.
I think it's just working. It's not much to hear it.
Yeah, like when you tapped it
Yeah,
most
that's how it
recently.
works.
Okay, so we'll open this up for public hearing, but I'll read those instructions. Before you begin, please state your name for the record. Please speak into the microphone so your comments can be recorded. Limit your statement to 2 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of others, you may ask the chairperson for more time. Please phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. This is your opportunity to express your opinions to the city council, not a time to ask questions and expect dialogue between yourself and council or staff. Please address your comments to the council, not to the public. The council may ask questions about your comments in order for them to better understand you. In the future, note that if you have questions or need to discuss an issue, you may meet with city council members or appropriate city staff member before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may provide a written statement as your input for a hearing. You may read your entire statement or summarize it. The 2-minute limit still applies. You may provide a copy of a written statement to the city recorder, who will make copies for the city council, and the written statement will become part of the public record. However, the written submitted statement will not be included in the minutes of the meeting. So we will open that public hearing for comment.
Just like to ask the council, how would we expect you can't come here and ask a question and learn about these things. The minutes came out, an hour before the meeting tonight. So how are we expected to be informed on some of these things that we have to come to a public meeting on? I came here tonight to learn about this, see if it's going to increase fees charged for construction, someone building a home. But you read the statement, you can't ask any questions. I didn't even know it was on the agenda for an hour. Is there another way for me to become informed beforehand?
I'll answer that. Just there's typically in the newsletter, we'll kind of do anticipatory things if there are big things coming down the pike. I always talk about it on my Instagram. I always talk about what we're going to be talking about and then if there is something that you're concerned about, as I mentioned, you're always welcome to call staff, email staff. So
two other things to bring up. This, if it's a public hearing, it goes out 10 days minimum in advance. So this went out 11 days in advance as a public hearing notice on the Utah's public notice website.
You
And
can
then
subscribe to that too,
Yeah.
Bob. Like
you
I
can subscribe to that. Marie can actually email you agendas, but this agenda has to go out 24 hours in advance. The agenda actually went out 24 hours ago. Yeah, it's been on the website though for 24 hours.
I was just gonna mention, before I was on council, that Utah State site was the best resource, because you can put in your phone and then you're tagged, so it actually notifies you proactively. The alert fatigue gets pretty old, but for someone that wants to be well informed, that's the best thing I found.
Okay. Are there any other comments for the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and we'll begin discussion among council. Any questions on this from the council?
Yeah, so I just have one question on the first fee of 5,000 for the new road.
Mhm.
What's the maximum square footage that we'd ever see on this? Because I noticed on the older road, we actually have a amount per square feet too. Does that need to be added? Or do we never surpass that 5,000?
I think you need to
Good
look
size.
into that. That's a good catch. I think they had a couple fees here and I can ask Jordan that. But I think we do need to put in the on a scale of 350 per square foot in addition to that fee.
Yeah.
So that would be something to add. Basically, if the area disturbed is greater than 300 square feet, the fee will be assessed on a scale of 350 per square foot.
Okay. yeah,
Well,
that's-
is it a greater scale though?
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
you,
or
You could do
zero.
more. You could do a
Yeah.
500 per square foot or something, or $5 per square foot type of fee.
I don't know about the amount.
I mean,
it just seems like you
500,
would
wow,
need-
that's
yeah.
one way to get people to not
Yeah.
cut into new roads.
Yeah, sorry, $5 per square foot. I would say in addition to those fees right there.
Okay.
I
So-
had a question too, and I thought you were going to go a different way with the definition of a pothole fee. So the way you described it, it's like a core drill,
Yeah,
pothole. So when they bore, they have to daylight every so often. And usually when they daylight, they don't have to make a large hole, but a lot of times they do that in the asphalt. Usually it's in the park strip, but they only do like a 2 foot by 2 foot because they
Yeah.
just have to connect where they've daylighted the conduits.
that would
Is
be the
that-
pothole. Yes,
That
that's
is still
another way.
considered a definition of a
Yep.
pothole, rather
Yep.
than, so included the 2 by 2 when they're doing the bore, but also core drilling is both pothole.
Yes,
All right.
good catch there, Craig.
Good.
And those are kind of defined in that application there.
Yeah, as long as we captured that.
Mhm.
So for purposes of tonight, given that there's that question that Buzzy raised on the new road cut permit fee beyond the
Square foot.
300 square feet,
Yeah.
do we need to table this or do we?
You could table it because out of the interest of, you don't really want to change a resolution last
Yeah.
minute. You can change ordinances and other things. That was what I was going to recommend, just tabling this for 2 weeks and then just coming back with kind of the identical thing with that change in there.
Okay, any other questions on this?
So we have to formally move to table, right?
You don't have to formally move to
Okay.
table
All right.
as well. You can just
No action.
basically table it or no action.
Okay, but I do want to just make sure we exhaust the discussion on this so that when we have that language in, that we've addressed all the other issues and we can just plug that in. So any other questions on this? Okay, then we will not take action on this and revisit it in a couple of weeks. All right. Today, right now is the hour to see if you did your homework on the next item, which is consideration of an ordinance modifying multiple sections of the North Logan Municipal Code relating to the permissibility and standards for short-term rentals, accessory dwelling units, and conditional use permits. The amendments also adjust multiple sections of the North Logan Municipal Code regarding public noticing requirements needed in order to conform with the recently adopted statewide requirements of SB 43. Take it away, Scott. Yeah.
Yep.
So what this is over the last probably 8 to 10 months, we've recognized the acute issues in our ordinances for rentals, accessory dwelling units, and conditional use permits. Just for our daily portion of our ordinances and use of the ordinances applications, we identify some problematic language, the language that was acted upon by the county commission, so that was the field, one that did not deal with, due to its ambiguous, feature, and it wasn't clear enough in the ordinance. We've also had some additional short-term rentals come online with farm complex and concern with some members of the public that come out with some concerns. And so we take this opportunity to address the issues we know it affects both of those improvements. So in essence, it's not that complicated, but there's a lot of red lines just because of the amount of ordinances that we've touched about these topics. And so I'll go through just real quick through the bullet points, so just have a record of what it is that it's in the proposal, and if we ask the question, we go on.
Scott, would you mind just speaking up since the mic's not working?
Yeah, I will do my best.
Thank you.
Okay, so in a nutshell, just to try to keep this simple, the first thing that we're looking to do is we're trying to adjust the permissibility of short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units. As it stands today, our ordinances allow for short-term rentals as a permitted use in any of our residential zones. If you want a short-term rental property, you can, you just have to get a business license. And with accessory dwelling units, it's unique in that we have both internal and detached dwelling units, accessory dwelling units. Attached or internal are permitted uses as well. You see, a building permit to construct one of those. Detached, on the other hand, is treated entirely differently. You actually have to get a conditional use permit, you have to notify all the neighbors, to have a public hearing, go before the planning commission before you get a building permit for detached accessory dwelling unit. Now, as we look at these things between internal, detached, and then also the short-term rental, piece of property, it was interesting to see that the most restrictive was the detached accessory dwelling unit when we're having more issues with short-term rentals. And so as we look at this, we thought maybe it would be a better idea to swap a few of these things around, make all accessory dwelling units with the internal or detached permitted uses, as opposed to treating one as permitted and the other as conditionally permitted. We'll standardize that, leave them all as permitted uses. We still have to go through the review process, get the building permit. But with short-term rentals, we'll keep it as a property right? We don't want to eliminate that. We'll move it from permitted to conditionally permitted. So you have to come to the city, show us where your parking is going to be, there's a good data policy that we go by. We're going to be issued with a first use operation. That's the biggest change that we anticipate in this. Okay. A few other things we're also addressing. With the conditional use permits in our language right now, there's not a very good explanation as to when they expire and how they expire. We had a conditional use permit that we thought was expired, have gone past a year. We thought, okay, this is likely expired. Issue a notice of expiration, and we had a permit that we had. This permit was expired. The folks that had that initial approval had some concern with the way the language read because they weren't sure that it had expired based on how it was read. So we're updating that language to make it a little bit more clear as to when the conditional use is expired. Now let's see. There's some fees in our conditional use permit language in the body of the ordinance that don't match up with the fee schedule, master fee schedule. Typically, the best practice is to keep all your fees in one place in the master fee schedule, so you won't have fees in one row of our ordinance and then another right there. So we're going to pull that out of the conditional use permit section, and we're going to keep the fees in the master fees. That's a cleanup item, just making sure that that's not. With conditional use permits, all conditional use permits are what we call administrative and sensitive. The difference between administrative and legislative. Legislative is what we make policy, regulation. With a conditional use permit, the rules are already established, and so as we do those types of permits, we don't need to take them through a legislative process. In our existing language, a conditional use permit, we have the ability to follow up with it. And in some regards, that's problematic. A lot of municipalities are going away from this because it opens up grammar. And so with that issue, we've been having a clamor in the public hearings. we want to make sure that property owners who are going before the planning commission for a conditional use permit are reviewed on the merits of their application as opposed to come out of a public hearing setting.
I think maybe also, Scott, just to add to that, you're kind of bound as staff, and the city as a whole is bound by what the ordinances require. And so I think that's where we want public input. Just to be clear, we want public input, but where it would appear that we're ignoring the public input in implementing something that we're bound to do, that's where it becomes problematic, is that you're having a public hearing, but you're not listening because you can't.
Very much so, and so you open up for public hearing, you that there's, we have to follow the rules that are already on. And there's also some concern with property owners, if there is clamor in the decision-making process, they have, the ability to question whether or not they had their due process rights. They have a right to an unbiased, decision-making board, and support it, so clamor just creates all sorts of problems. Okay. jumping
Sorry,
back-
Scott, can I ask a question on that as well, just while you're talking about that? So the short-term rentals are conditional use permit. Does that mean that you would review that administratively, staff would? And you wouldn't have a public hearing unless you deemed it necessary, or, okay,
As proposed, what we're saying is it'll have to go before the planning commission or the administrative land use authority. But because it is an administrative approval, it is a property right. You'll go before the planning commission without the chance for public hearing to respond to that decision process.
What fees are associated with a conditional use permit request?
There's one fee for 1 second.
And then 12 months later on renewals, that fee then levied again? I thought the language, what I read is that we were clarifying that the conditional use permit expired at 12 months, then had to be renewed.
That's
Did I
if they
misread
haven't
that?
done anything.
If
that's
they haven't
when,
taken any
If they're like-
action on the
Yeah.
conditional permit. Okay, my mistake. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I actually do have a question on this. You say that a public hearing would be allowed if you would deem it necessary. I guess I'm just trying to imagine a scenario where you would deem a public hearing necessary. Do you have a situation in mind that, like an example?
Yes, for example, there's let's say mention out and it's not clear how it will impact its neighbors, and maybe the planning commission chair wants to get some public feedback and say, I understand how this might impact you. You have the discretion to do so, but they're not obligated to do so. The land use authority can only go by the public comment if they want to do so.
Okay,
As proposed, and so you're not mandated to do so, you're not obligated to have that as part of the process. There's very few situations in an administrative review process where that would be necessary.
okay, that's. sort of
so
what I
how
thought.
would you ascertain what the impact would be? Like, if you don't call a public hearing, how would you levy that in like the good neighbor kind of requirements?
So church members, for example, we always encourage our decision makers to be aware of the item that they're doing. Oftentimes, I think we'll visit the site and just kind of see, okay, where's this property, how is it associated with these neighbors, what are the variables at play? And get a good sense of if I live next door to this particular use, how would that impact you? As well as an extra neighbor, maybe some fencing would be helpful, maybe just a picture of parking that's walking.
So I'm just wondering though, would there be someone with that onus to actually, like, I'm thinking about the specific ADU short-term rental that we have been talking about. Would there be some sort of trigger there that would say, we better go talk to those neighbors and not just kind of, because I think it's kind of difficult to surmise what the impacts would be. Is there anything that kind of holds the city accountable for, doing our due diligence on that?
It's up to the discretion of the planning commission chair, but also staffers, if you didn't want to be order, you don't want to process the other staffers, so we're trying to look at it on aspects of kind of what are the true impacts that would be impacted, what would be impactful. It's also important to know that the conditional use permit, by having them in our ordinances as conditional permitted, is a property that has a grant for a piece of property that's And so we, as a administrative land use support, we cannot deny that unless they go into the standard. Black and white standard. They just don't do it. But also we can impose conditions above what is reasonably anticipated as an. Not state language that is specific as to how we administer it. So there is some guidelines as to how far we can go or just how.
Okay.
Do we still give a notification? We used to give a notification like 300 feet out all the way around a property that has a conditional use pending. Do we still do that prior to the planning commission? We don't do that anymore. So we don't notice anything.
That depends on the decision. They don't require that you have those boundaries. You can establish something that's more restrictive as local ordinance based on the state. On this type of decision, with these zones, for example, these there are various. That's a legislative.
So Scott, how does this interact with, say, if an HOA implements stricter standards than the city has? Is that permissible?
Yeah, that's a great question. So HOAs, those are private covenants between property owners within that neighborhood or that subdivision. And if they have more restrictive requirements, then those go. The city doesn't enforce those because it's not a regulation. But if you live in a neighborhood, you have some scenarios that you cannot show permit. But let's say you still come in and seek the request for the permit, we wouldn't go digging into your scenarios to see if it's allowed or not. We made an issue with permit petition. You're still in conflict with the private covenants and your neighbors could say you're out.
So that would just be something that would have to go into civil court.
Okay.
We didn't mention here, you should verify that systems that you allow for example. But when it comes to accessory dwelling units, the state again said HOAs cannot prohibit internal accessory dwelling units. They can still be used for having funds on external or detached, but they kind of carve that out for the HOA.
Question I have, Scott, I think the regulation on short term, this is a good policy in my opinion, after reading it, especially with some of the history we've had. What are we going to proactively, I know it's pretty easy to determine today who has a short term rental in the city. We're going to proactively notify those individuals that a permit is required moving forward.
We cannot enforce solely based on advertising of that short.
Oh,
Thanks to a legislator.
so a neighbor
who-
has to.
Yeah.
Yeah, who owns a lot of them, and yeah.
There was a legislator that was
Yeah.
kind of getting busted and he said, let's just pass a law that says you can't base it on an actual listing.
Yeah, on a Verbo or Airbnb.
Basically, they go out and they get the spiders of what they're listings of short-term rentals within a certain geographic area, and report back to this just enforce the ordinance. And that's just to become aware of who might be renting. You can't enforce solely off of that information. You have to have a violation of some sort of other information to show that they're.
Like does a
But-
neighbor qualify a neighbor that thinks that this might be going on and to, that their neighbor might be having nightly short-term rentals? That could qualify for investigation.
It's extremely difficult to investigate. Because then put the license plate first.
Yeah.
What if, so not based on the listing, regardless of what it says? Okay, love that law. So helpful.
Okay.
So they're problematic. North Logan doesn't have short issue. We have a union rental. I have a few issues from time to time, but we don't have.
Well,
So I came from New York County. I wrote the legislation for short-term rentals for Valley. And they have an enormous issue. They've got 1,000 unique listings, which means they have probably 2,300 listings throughout the internet. There are 1,000 units that are being put on that. And they're all over the place, and I guess I've never anticipated to have. We're not at that point as a community, we've got a handful. We have a few that have gone through the process to see the business license, the existing members, but not everybody.
Yeah.
There are some for sure.
But I think the irony, and this is what I would share with some friends that have short-term rentals, is that go get the permit because it actually defends you in the case of a neighbor that's frustrated, because the requirements aren't overly strict, to be honest with you. And the fee isn't exorbitant. And then if somebody in the neighborhood is frustrated, they follow that process, and the law requires it. And we've met I think people are going to look at it as a burden to have to go get that permit, when really I think it benefits those that might have those rentals. So,
But
And to be clear, the regulations that we have.
Yeah. Right.
We're just saying.
Yep.
Buzzy and Scott bring up a very good point. This was debated 2 or 3 years ago. North Logan was one of the first to have ADU ordinance in the valley, and also discussing short-term rentals. And I think we're just trying to get ahead of the curve because there were a few concerns or complaints that came out. And so just addressing those initially, the city council previously, when they were looking over this, tried to balance everything. They, a lot of cities at that time were just saying none. They were trying to figure out ways to just say absolutely no short-term rentals, absolutely no ADUs. Let's get rid of all of them. I remember the council at that time debating about, this is coming and we will have those throughout the city. How can they do it in an effective way where someone can come in and, as Buzzy just described, it's not that hard, just meet these few requirements that are the actual basis of any complaint. And they're nuisance complaints, they're noise, they're parking, they're disturbing the neighborhood type of things. And so hats off to you guys for going through that and coming up with something that really works well. It makes it a reality that someone is going to come in and actually apply and not fly under the radar permanently.
There are some regulations that are so burdensome that people try to skirt them.
Yeah.
It's too much. Especially they'll just plan it really well. We're really not asking. On some kind of like the competition.
Maybe make 2 comments. Obviously, I agree with, if you're gonna go through a permitting process for the safety, like whether it be carbon monoxide, parking, however, I get concerned because all of a sudden and I agreed with the code enforcement officer. Then the code enforcement officers get bored. I had Logan City mail me a card because my weeds were 6 inches. So if we're gonna, and I'm just using that example, but to what, if we're trying to justify this position or the billing, because that could turn into that, because all of a sudden you could say a land use thing. Look at apartments. We have, apartments with 300 plus units that you're hoping that they're doing a good job screening. But if you look at Airbnb, VRBO, you can see ratings on the people that you're allowing into it. And it's probably even just as good as a process as some of these tenants, because you don't know if those tenants are moving, what they're moving in. So I just hope down the line and future councils that we don't get to the point where we are saying, what's going on, because it takes one noise complaint. Like I say, every Airbnb is great until you get that one group, and everyone's going to eventually get one of those. That's the risk you take in it. So as an person has 4 Airbnbs that do well, they're almost better in a community because guess what? They're only lived in 1/3 of the time. Less noise complaints, less cars. Most of your trouble is these huge homes where you have 20 plus. That's where the party starts. If you have something that's less, I do get nervous with, we can't even get an ugly house down on 1200 down. So if all of a sudden we're going to police that, give me a break, so I'm just, I'm frustrated.
So if we're gonna, I mean, what gives us the right to enforce that to a point, right? I mean, because you're dealing with the after effects of it. If somebody comes in and has a party, causes damage, then your insurance, you're liable. But I hope we have way too much to do in the city to have somebody, a code enforcer, go on Airbnb and say something. So. I just hope we don't get that.
Do we have anything as far as number of people per home or cars? It's in the good neighbor. Here, I can even show them.
So the way that it would work.
Emily took care of me. Thank you.
Yes. It was meant to be a
Page 50.
ratio of just public properties. The capacity can increase if you have the capacity to accommodate occupancy, but it's also based on parking. So a huge home, but only 2 parking spots. Planning commission did speak on that quite a bit, so we're concerned about it. They didn't want to limit it more than was necessary, but we also want to make sure that from a neighbor perspective, we want to hold that. There's some more questions about the bits and pieces. There are some things in here we've adjusted from definition we've added. Just for a while, these types of changes.
I was curious about, you offer a 6 months extension. Sorry, I'm trying to go to it.
For the condition.
Yeah, and I just want to, there was one condition I had a question on. Sorry, hold on. Just take me a second. Okay, here we are. In order, so they have to get a 6-month extension, it has to be, it's granted by the community development director upon written request 30 days prior to the expiration date. And you say in, substantial progress as determined by, and I know we got rid of substantial work. So I'm a little interested in knowing, like, what would you consider substantial progress? Seeing as we got rid of substantial work because it was unclear. Like, you do say based on, professional judgment, but just as a person who doesn't know what that looks like at all, do you mind just kind of explain that for me?
So, it's based on making progress toward community building. So in most cases, when you want to start with a producer, if you just right there.
I mean, it is one of 4 elements.
Oh,
So
no,
I think-
it's not a huge one. I'm just curious, I guess, because we got rid of the substantial, I mean, and
That was probably.
yeah, so
So for example, if it requires a building permit, not all conditional uses require a building permit, but if it does, we need to show them the progress towards the issuance of that. So it requires you to develop the property, for example, if it's raw property, we need to subdivide with that infrastructure. That's our progress towards actually. But I'm open to any ideas you think maybe better to say, you haven't made progress. Because if they sit on their hands and say, well, we're doing engineering work in the background and we've been watching the market to see if it's right, execute on this program, then we have, it's okay, it's inspired, it's the allocate progress towards the program. Whatever uses that show example, where the structure, if you have it used it,
Can we entertain something with the word visual in there? Physically visual progress. Otherwise, it feels like it doesn't really have any teeth because anybody can say, "Oh, I'm working on that."
Well, I
We'll see
think
if
there's
we-
protection though, because this list has and in it. And so it requires someone to consider all four of those factors. I think if that stood alone as it used to, where
Okay.
it's like substantial work, I think you're okay because I
Okay.
think you would fail in that situation based on any of the other ones that it's things beyond
So
your
it-
Can you make it
control.
want
All
to say
of them.
progress? Just say show progress, because the substantial is a little bit, up
The
for-
other. oh,
Well, but
sorry,
if you
Craig.
leave it at just progress, then that's anything,
The
right? But
substantial-
substantial progress, I think
And I,
is,
I like
that's-
tying it to your
that's-
professional judgment. I just,
The other thing that
know.
was, that's clarifying is, yes, the mayor pointed out it's so it's not that big of a risk for the city. But the other thing that you could put in there is any type of submittal, because the last time that we had this question about substantial work is what Scott described, where they said that they were working on everything, and they were to some extent, but they hadn't submitted anything. And so that's why I'd say if you can put in some word that says a submittal, any type, a building design, a plan, a request, an update on the conditional use permit, any type of communication that has an update with a submittal of information, that would be fine. But just saying I'm working on it, you have no verification
well,
there.
and maybe you can put that within that as evidenced by submittals
okay.
or physical progress being made.
And reading this, so this section has not been controversial. We spent a lot of time with the examples, I think we've read this. To be quite honest, but you're right, we do want to make sure there's physical progress. We've had for instance, having a see with permit, and we said, well, you know, we've been using our design team to mock up some ideas, and some builders we've got already, like looking at it. We haven't actually submitted the next step. Work in progress. So I think it's a little.
I like that too,
I like that too.
because
Okay.
then you're not caught saying, show me what you've done outside of any interaction with the city, that it kind of gives a signal that you actually need to have done something with the city. You've submitted something.
If only just because I know that substantial work has been sort of taken advantage of previously. I just wanted to make sure we weren't covering our butts.
Alan, your law degree is paying off.
Thank you.
So
Have
I
it
think that's
online.
like a minimal edit that you can put in there. Well, and maybe
Oh,
you can do maybe
I don't want to hamstring people from being able to do this as much as it's almost like if you say you're gonna do this, I want you to do it then. And not instead,
and maybe you can put like in that first letter, maybe a nod to Craig's as well, either actual submittals to the city or physical evidence that progress.
So. I think maybe. I would say that not only do they see it, the city has set. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that minimal enough that
That
we can still consider
move on
this? Okay. Okay.
How,
Write that down, whoever's gonna
sorry,
motion.
I was gonna say, how would I say that? How would I say that? Just-
Fuzzy.
Maybe I'll just write it down. real
Roger.
quick.
With that, I think you can say with the aforementioned modification to 12C-510B1.
I do like it. I think it cleaned up a lot as I read through it, and that's what I really liked about it, is just cleaned up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me access.
And
I actually thought the good neighbor ones for the short-term rentals seemed very reasonable to me based on other language I was looking at. So thank you for making those seem pretty reasonable.
yeah, and Scott, if you would, I know that the planning commission has done the lion's share of work on this and that
Yeah.
they've kind of put in the hours. I've read the minutes and watched the meetings, and if you'll just pass along that we acknowledge that and, appreciate their hard work on this. I know they've put in a ton of time.
Are you taking the crack, Emily, since you're on? Represent the commission?
Sure. If everyone's ready, I move to approve, sorry, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Approve the ordinance modifying the multiple sections of the North Logan Municipal Code related to the permissibility and standards for short-term rentals, accessory dwelling units, and conditional permits with the aforementioned modifications to 12C-510, section B,
C
C1,
1.
sorry. Nope, B.
Is it B?
It is B.
Sorry.
I clicked out of it. Excuse me.
Good job.
B1.
That was impressive.
I'll second.
Okay, so excellent motion by Emily, second by Joni, piggybacking.
Thanks, guys.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thanks again, Scott.
Nice job, Scott.
Okay, next we will talk about more fun things like approving the city's annual performance of a fraud assessment checklist.
Motion to approve.
Was that real?
I already read it. Well, I read it.
Scott, are you talking about this or has Alan got it?
God.
Arm wrestle.
Scott, he'll keep it brief.
We're scoring beautifully.
This assessment is required by state required to year. And this, of course, is this year's.
That's
I move to approve.
I'll second it.
okay. Motion by Buzzy, second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Scott.
Very persuasive,
Greater
Scott.
than
Thank
200,
you.
I'm happy.
Okay.
Just to go along with that, I just need to congratulate Scott. When several years ago, when we used to go through our audits, we would have several findings, 18, 19 findings. Now we have 0 to 1. And it's because of all these things that Scott's put together and following these fraud assessment checklists and everything else that we go through to prevent fraud within North Logan City. We've had multiple meetings with the auditors this week to go over it, and they ask a myriad of questions about things we're doing as far as controls, protections for the city as we go through this. And Scott and Debbie and the other people in charge of finance have put those together. So hats off to them. Sorry.
Yeah, thank
Good
you,
job.
Scott.
So,
Okay, we'll move on to our work session items. First up is discuss a potential survey regarding green waste curbside services. I'll take this as the garbage czar. Alan? Yes.
Please.
Okay, so as you guys know, we transitioned to waste management, providing our curbside waste services. We kind of negotiated with them to match what Logan has previously charged for green waste. Green waste, they tell me, is a really big focus of our valley, that's unique to our valley. We have a meeting scheduled on November 2nd to discuss with Waste Management what we'd like to see in our city. They're willing to do whatever we want in terms of the frequency of picking up the curbside green waste is just a matter of the price. So what Alan has created here is a survey that we'd like to send to our residents so that we're advocating for them accurately. So what it does is it just kind of asks, would you be willing, do you have a green waste can currently? Would you want to get one? And then going down a little bit, we talk about, would you pay $9 for biweekly service? Or would you pay $11 for weekly service? Those are kind of the options on the table. What we'll then take from that, I will take that information to this meeting with all the other mayors and, just kind of negotiate at that point with Waste Management for green waste. So any questions on that?
I vote for option 5.
The only one I would
Buzzy.
add, just for people to know, how much, so there are some people who asked me, and I had to be like, I have no idea. I don't know what we're doing with green waste. How much would it be for them to get a green waste can? Is there any way we could just put like, if you don't have this, but would like to get this somewhere in the survey? I know it sounds, sorry, you just said, would you use / continue to use? And there are some people who don't have a can that may want to get one.
Let me see if I could find out what that is, what that would cost.
think generally they just give you like, it's their property.
I think that
Something-
is
Yeah,
actually,
You don't pay a fee for that.
Okay, for the
So-
can.
They should be can,
you get the can,
but they're gonna make up for their cost and the fees they're. charging.
right?
Okay,
So they could request a can, but it locks you into a year contract.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they're paying- So it's a year, so you pay that through the winter.
Yeah, right. So it's year
Is that the
round.
Same with Logan today.
Yeah.
I mean, previous to October.
Yeah, so it would be, yeah.
I have several neighbors.
And, you know, we're hoping we can negotiate on, you know, that every week price, but I think that's a pretty safe bet that the max it would be 11.
Do we, I'm going with you, Alan, where you just typed. I was thinking the same thing. I just wonder if we just exclude that and then offer it when we can, and here's why, because that's an easy answer for everybody to say yes
I
to,
would actually prefer it if we put it as other and people would have to write that in.
or something
That's
like
fine.
that, like.
We can wait for that input.
Yeah.
I know that it was something that I didn't realize cost North Logan City $7,000.
It's ridiculous.
And I think, like I said, I think people feel really passionately about green waste. I think they feel differently if they have to pay for it.
Sorry, 7,000 is the cost, the direct cost we receive from Logan City. It'd probably be the same or more with Waste Management because they're gonna get dinged by Logan City. They're not the sole provider.
Mhm.
And then I didn't think about this, the cost of the personnel that were involved.
Right,
You could probably add another $2,000 onto that and.
yeah.
But the hardest thing for me on that, Alan, too, is that you have an option if you're going to use a lot of green waste to subscribe to a can, or you can always load to the dump for free.
Right.
Mhm.
And so
Well,
it's just
we'll see
seems,
how long they keep the free thing, but
yeah.
I think that
Are they
is-
debating getting rid of that,
Y-
even for
yeah,
their own
they're doing a
residents?
study right now, Logan
Okay,
is, and
okay.
typically the results of those studies are, we should charge you
We
guys.
should make money.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point, and I think maybe we just take that off.
And
What-
add other.
Sure, I think that's some free.
I actually think
others.
other is a good idea because maybe somebody has a really cool idea that we're not thinking of.
You could just add a comment section.
Well, there
They
is a
do have a
comment
comment
underneath
section.
that. Do you have any other comments regarding green waste?
Could they
So you
just
could
bring
just
it
leave
to
that
my
and not
yard
have
and I'll
another
charge them?
I like that. Yes, let's start it that way.
I think that's good. I think it's a pretty simple survey, so it'll take all of 30 seconds to complete.
Yeah.
You gonna parlent that out?
The what, sorry?
Parlent,
Only $2 more.
If you would like, we can send it out via Parliament.
Yeah,
it's significant enough in my opinion. I believe
That's-
others.
yeah,
weigh in.
it's-
I know. You think it'd be double.
It's a
You've run-
service
yeah.
that a lot of citizens
Yeah.
have come to, like the mayor described. Most of the other counties across the state do not provide a green waste service. In fact, I don't know of another county across the state that provides a green waste service. It's very unique to Cache Valley. And residents have become accustomed to it. I mean, it's something very useful that they've used in the past. And so this is a big change. And that's why I like the idea of going out with a survey and saying, what do people want at this point?
I'm super curious who on the council has a green waste bin. I do,
I have a garden.
and I don't use it super often.
We've just always taken ourselves to the dump.
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
challenge is you take a little can and most of the time when you're hauling, you're gonna tell me you're gonna take the time to cut up a long branch and put in a garbage
Yeah.
can, then you can put it in the back and you pull it out in 10 minutes.
see, I was gonna say.
I think
that's
most of
part of the
this is
reason
like
why
grass.
I don't have a
If
can.
you're- if you back
But-
grass, that's one.
I think that's a lot of it's.
A
bagging
lot of my,
grass.
I was
what
gonna say,
people-
I have a lot of my neighbors who have green waste cans, but
Bad grass.
they're
neighbors that
in a
do
different
use it, right?
situation than I am.
Yeah, leaves and grass clippings are what you see most of all.
It does keep it,
Green
well,
waste.
I guess it's really canal with more. pretty much.
Yeah, canal or a barrel fire is what you're gonna
I
see.
know some of it, keep it out of the waste water, you know, it
Mhm.
does keep it from being done somewhere else.
Yeah,
What months are you doing this again? April through?
April through October
April through October. Okay.
But you pay for it during the winter.
yeah.
goes year round.
Year
like-
round?
It's a country club.
The fee
I think
is.
because it's kind of tricky to bill it otherwise.
That makes
So
sense.
they just figure your annual costs and divide it by 12.
Gotcha. I like the survey. I think
Okay.
that looks good.
Okay, any other comments
Oh,
on
we
that?
did. You guys missed it. We were discussing whether it warrants a parlent message. I thought it did. It's
Oh.
pretty significant enough, but
I think it's fine. I generally haven't gotten a ton of blowback from people
yeah. me
get
too.
who get those. You have apparently.
I'm getting the opposite.
I
People
don't.
are feeling
I
more
get-
informed than.
I get a lot of complaints at the front desk. And the other reason, this is kind of odd, we send out parlance unless it's an emergency or other critical situation where we're just sending it to a neighborhood. Like when we did 2180 North, we sent it to just that neighborhood and gave them updates a couple
Yeah.
of times. But when it's citywide, we always send it at 5 PM. The reason we do that is because we send it out in the midday, if we send it citywide, and the front desk will get at least 5 to 10 calls within a second and probably 20 other calls within the next 10 minutes saying, we got a message from the city, but we don't have time to listen to that.
Yeah, send it at 5.
So they call the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, and then they complain. They're like, well, I don't want to know about that. And so it's something that the city,
Sorry.
we solved that by sending it out at 5 PM. Not that we don't want feedback, but at that point, the city staff, the offices.
They're not very
They don't
front.
answer the phone.
Okay.
Cool.
Just imagine a scenario.
Do you, Alan, do you have any reluctance to send out a parlin about this?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We can send it out.
Okay, let's plan on that then. Okay, we'll move on to updates regarding North Logan's water capital improvement projects. Alan, are you taking
I
that
can
one
take
tonight?
that.
Motion to approve water projects next.
Or do you?
This probably isn't updated significantly. I can just give you a couple updates over the analysis of things taking place right now.
Presented.
And the main thing that they're looking at in the water model, in the water master plan, they've already done a lot of the modeling and the master planning. They're just fine tuning it right now based off of anticipated growth, which is nigh impossible to estimate. They basically take our zoning, they take what build out would look like under the current zoning, which doesn't help since we're starting a new general plan right now, but it gives a very, a good estimate of what it might look like at build out. North Logan's build out is around 33 to 35,000 people is when we're fully grown. But when they go through that, the other thing that's really hard to guesstimate is who will use secondary and who will use culinary to water their yards. And so as you go through that, they'll look at like an apartment complex and how much are they using based off of the zoning. Then they'll look at like a 1 acre lot on culinary, and they almost use about the same during the summer months. They will use a lot of water on a culinary 1 acre yard. And so taking those factors and those variables into consideration is really hard for them. But they're trying their best to err on the side of what would be the high end use, not the extreme low end. So we plan accordingly with our capital improvement plan.
Do you know what the minimum GPM and pressure they're going for?
They're following all of the fire code, and everything
I
in
knew you
there,
were gonna
Craig,
say
is
that.
way over my head. I know use, I know numbers, I know pressure. Gallons per minute is a fire, but they have to meet every single fire flow and fire demand, which is a key factor, which didn't used to be a factor. It led to several errors throughout cities.
1,000 GPM will be on.
Yeah.
Fire code is kind of boring, so let's pivot subject here. If you, I should know this, but the 2500 North tie-in, where does that complete on the east side? Is that right at 16th?
Let me pull up the city.
I've been meaning
Map.
to ask you that for months and finally remembered tonight.
So we've had 4 independent studies take place, 4 independent models. We wanted to verify them. Each model has come up with the same recommendation. And that recommendation is to go from the potential tanks on the property that the city owns, split the city. So take a transmission line down 2300 North. It gets to this point on 16th East,
Uh-oh.
then goes over to 2500 North and goes down to somewhere near Elkridge Park, which would be the ultimate tie-in.
No cursor, but so you were saying that we would come down off those tanks from 23, the future 23.
23, it would go
And then tie to
underneath that
16.
road, tie into 16th, go north, but it wouldn't have many tie-ins on it. This is a transmission
Yeah,
line where
right,
you'd only
right.
have a few, no
So-
residential connections. can
Right, right,
connect
right.
to
So
this.
the length of the transmission line goes along what would the future 2300?
2300, and then it hits 16th, and then it goes north to 25, and then it drops down somewhere near Elkridge Park, and then in the future, potentially even further west.
Okay.
But when you say 25, on the east side of 16th, that's 26.
Yeah.
26, good catch, Craig, curving down along the master plan, the transportation master plan. 25, their lines actually just kind of like curve through the city, but they have to follow a transportation master plan route because we can't just put them through people's
It's
yards.
gonna be 25 all the way to 16th, and then all.
Okay. Any other questions on the capital improvement plan? For water. Okay, then we'll move on to updates on the Civic Center.
Quick updates on Civic Center. So you'll see some progress over here on the outside of the building and also the
good.
building itself.
Very
So the
Yeah,
roof
the
is
roof.
going in right now and they'll put the caps on the roofs right now. Those are kind of decorative caps. Then they'll pour a flat roof across the whole roof on the decking there. And then they're finishing the parking lot. So we're getting them conduits for irrigation, everything that'll go around the parking lot. The grounds around the city office are going to be used as a demonstration of Waterwise landscaping. So it'll have some Waterwise grass mixed in with several different plants throughout the entire area that are somewhat native to the area. So that's the design and the plan that we're shooting for right now. And then they're tying in several different, they're working on the electrical the electrical plans for the city office. The plans are in place, but they're tying in several things, including fiber and where networks will go. We met with the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, as to how the emergency lines for communication will come through. That'll be a hub for communication in emergencies. Will be the city offices, the basement of the city offices will be that hub with an antenna on the roof to tie in several different areas. They actually check in once a month, and then we do tabletop exercises about once a year regarding that.
Is that a ham radio?
Yes, ham radio.
Okay.
And in the last exercise, so the council wasn't here for that, we ranked the highest in the valley for our
Really?
emergency response and emergency communication.
Well, that's
Um,
great.
The other things taking place right now are the designs for the community center and the associated CIB funding, which basically we're just wrapping up a lot of the finalization of those designs and the associated funding for the community center, which
Cool.
could start as early as the spring or summer of 2024.
Nice.
Okay,
I have a request,
what is it?
some type of fundraising, speaking of decorative. So I met with a rep from Everlight. I just sent you the bid. It's a bit big, but it'd be kind of cool to have lights up there that light up orange through the pumpkin walk. Green for Green Canyon
Like LED.
Games, blue for Aggie Games.
Okay, yeah, we can look into that for sure. Joni, you have not been attending the meetings I've been in, which are all, how can we cut costs? And I've had to like sacrifice some very dear things to my heart. And I just told Judy that she does not get an indoor book drop. So we'll look into those lights and see how that goes.
That was
awesome.
awesome.
Okay,
Through the budget for lights.
Scrap the books and put in some lights. That's what.
let's get our priorities straight. Okay, let's talk about dates for city council meetings in December.
So
Alan, what are the proposals?
I think this was already quasi said at the beginning of the year, but just to clarify with the city council members and what works best for you. There's options. December 6th is the employee party. That's the first Wednesday of December. And we always have it on that first December. It doesn't have to take place, but it's already reserved and everything's basically in place.
So it does have to.
So we can say no, but
So
if
we can
we say
override.
no,
Hey, we're
we
taking-
can be the Grinch.
Well, basically, if you cancel it, we'll be in like a high school gym at
Okay.
that point.
Instead of the commons area.
Instead of the commons, at least we have.
I will not.
If we say no now, we'll have to go to a high school gym instead of the common area of a high school.
Buzzy's not invited anymore.
On the
So
round
going
plastic
through
seat.
this- So going through this, you have a choice. You can either have two other meetings throughout that month. We normally gauge it off of the availability of the council members and their schedule and the potential number of agenda items throughout that month and urgency of meeting some of those demands.
It's my last month. We should do all three.
That's what the party's for.
You bet, Craig.
In the gym, but not the commons area.
Let's do one.
You can choose whichever one you want. Normally, we recommend the middle of the month, which would be
I
December
like
13th.
13. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
Yeah,
stick
that's
to
way
that.
better than the 20th.
27th ain't happening. Who's like, that's, you kidding me?
but Craig, you
Who got
can.
a sweat for
Craig,
the 27th?
Yeah, I don't even get dressed. There's no way I'm coming
I'm good for the 13th.
Okay.
Will it
Let's
be
plan
a
on that
pretty,
then.
will it be a pretty
What?
big
Sorry?
meeting?
December 13th. Let's plan on that.
Okay.
Okay,
And please, the common area, get that.
Shun. You're not invited.
Well, we have enough,
Marie, no invite for Buzzy when you send them out.
we won't have enough room in this building, right, for that. When it's completed, it'll still be the.
No, at the, not at this building,
the
but the
community center,
community
it's like
center
that.
will have enough room. Great point.
I'll wear something else, but you will not.
And the seats in the community center should not be a small stool that you have to sit on.
We'll see. We have some budget cuts to do, Alan.
I can't wait till we get our. small
Okay,
schools.
then let's move on to reports from our officers. You want to start, Scott? Sure.
Everybody's in a good mood. Uh-oh. Sits
All
real.
right.
What's this?
So if you'd like to, the next comment is coming up, but, we'll give it over a second. So I'm gonna put it out as a thing. Probably I do like it on. It's a discussion on, countywide land use. Open conservation, topics that are. I want to go to, sure. That's what I'm. As far as the general plan is concerned, we'd like to have the contract on your agenda next meeting for the consultant, the agreement for the actual contract. We'll have that on your agenda for review and execution. But just so everybody knows, the next steps in the process are likely having consulted a lot of data collection, start drafting up surveys, creating a website, doing some of that behind the scenes work over the holidays while, folks are at home or talking to the business. If you want to jump into public meetings for first next year, that's kind of our anticipated next steps. Then lastly, on our presentation agenda tomorrow, we are looking at an interesting item. It's a development agreement for
That's not
we don't have. So we're looking for Walmart on frontage for about the side. And so when we go to the southwestern most corner is the most preferential. And so we have come to a mutually beneficial outcome where we have agreed to give us that corner. And if we allow some adjustments in our standards for the second shop. So there's a few things that will be in this section for it, but working together with the planning commission.
Who designed that sign? Yeah. Wow.
So that was kind of the first shot that we just put the lights and
Yeah, no. I'm not sure about the guy standing next to it with no face, but the sign is. The sign is
Are
awesome.
you sure it's better than the existing sign?
I'm fairly confident that this sign is better than the existing.
It's like the temporary vibe that the sandstone gives. Maybe we'll be here next year, maybe not.
Maybe we
Or
will
that you
fade
have
it
to
away in
drive-
the sands of time.
You have to drive 5 miles per hour in order to read it.
Is that sign lit? That was the other question I was gonna ask.
That would be great.
The North, not the Walmart one, obviously that will be, but
Yep, we had to install that.
guys, that is so cool. Feels like we've made it. I'll believe it when it's in there.
This boy earned his. Eagle Scout.
What about the light, the turn signal? I know this is a little off here, but I noticed that there is a turn signal light, but it's always yellow. So it's like, why have it? Because I'm still gonna have to wait for 500 cars to go.
Because you
before
don't.
I
You can
race.
Talk to UDOT.
Is that a UDOT?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love them.
we're
I'll send
just
you
real
that.
happy to even have an arrow there, right?
I don't
that
know, I
was,
have it though.
That was a 1-year negotiation, extreme negotiations to get that light in. UDOT wanted to put a center median divider, a raised median down that entire length from 1400 to about north of that intersection that has a light at it.
Jeez.
And basically block all businesses and put them all out
I'm
of
just
business.
questioning who really thinks,
Look at that, Raj.
you know.
Hmm?
Yeah. But it's seriously, you have a yellow light, but that doesn't help me.
That's Spencer.
should turn red and green.
Okay, will you pass that along to you, Dot? Great, thank you. Okay, chief.
It's good to hear. Last week was kind of a busy week for me, for the department as well. I had the opportunity to go to the NPF Advanced School, last week at Montana. And in that week, we talked a lot about servant leadership. And it's had to bring a lot of the ideas that we talked about here. They talked a lot about foundational behaviors and what your department is known for, and what your organization is known for. One of the presenters was from Scottsdale PD, and he gave us an example of how they changed their organizational behavior. But every pay period, they put out with their paychecks the foundational behavior, and these were some of the ones that they had. He said, our organization, we treasure, protect, and promote our reputation. We think team first. We find a way. We embrace change and growth. And they've gone through and identified 26 areas that represent our organization. And that's put that out there to develop culture. So this training was fantastic. I'm excited to kind of implement a lot of those ideas in the police department as well. We have code enforcement interviews tomorrow. We're excited about. We have 2. We had a few who put their names to the schedule changes to something. We have 2 more experienced gentlemen who want to take on that whole course. I'm excited for that. This week we have a total of 93 calls and 88 traffic stops. We've been trying to make real efforts to get out in the community, especially during school times. It's being noticed and seen. With some of the calls we've had, a lot of crime of opportunity. We've had car doors that have been left open, unlocked, and keys that have been in the vehicle themselves. Things like that. So in this newsletter, this next one that's coming out, they talked about, let's make sure we're locking our stuff up. It's not that easy for these guys. And we're also asking for public's help in reporting suspicious things. If they see something that doesn't look right, to please call in and do it then, instead of a day later or 2 days later. At that point, it's hard to even follow up with it. So we're asking, if you see something suspicious around a place, there's a reason you're taking this. So let us know. We can respond back with that. From that, we have pumpkin walk. We're geared up for it. I think that's good this year. More meaningful. More public stage with that.
Okay, thank you, chief.
I have a
You're-
question. And I
Me
don't-
too.
It's
Go ahead.
mainly Logan. But I know that we do assist calls, and I'm just looking at where the Aggie games, like I'm talking basketball, it's not in Logan, those key intersections at 12 and
14.
14. And then it just seems like, so everyone's coming down the hill. And so I guess to me, I don't know if there's some communication, because I think it's some good presence, because I don't know if people know. I mean, people know that it's Logan. I just started thinking about what opportunity we have, because a lot of North Logan people are going into North Logan, they buy Aggie tickets. But the cop, and Logan has so many cops, I'm surprised they don't put somebody there. So they do a lot coming out, and I'm not trying to take away from that, but I don't know if there's some discussion, because you have a bunch of Aggie basketball games coming up. And you talk about presence. I know if I live in North Logan, I'm trying to get down the hill and I have 45 cars. And I'm looking down, there's a lot of illegal stuff going. They'll go right, shooting down the right lane, turn around a foothill wash, and it's dangerous. So I know it's not your jurisdiction, but it's almost like, hey, can we assist? And you get more, we do joint crashes down here, but just a thought. I mean,
It's interesting, actually. USU has been reaching out to us to ask for help from our officers.
Yeah. It's just a thought. I mean, you're talking half hour, and there's like what, there's 22,000 people that are now going to Aggie games 5 times a year. So
22,000.
This
That
may
was-
sound rude. There is an entity with 100 officers just south of us
Yeah.
that might be able to come help
And
out.
that's what I'm saying, at least a discussion, hey, you help us here, we can help there. I don't know, because maybe we're helping them there, but you are helping all of our residents of Hyde Park and North Logan get back to where they need to sit faster and safer. Because there's a bunch of crazies that go right, and I do it. I go shoot right, and then I go and turn around and I go right. That's kind of what I'm doing. Just a thought.
I mean.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, Scott? Marie? Mayor's message is Craig, I'm happy to say.
Yeah.
It's done.
What?
It's done.
Craig's making us look bad. He's not even running for reelection. What is this? Wow, love that, Craig. Hey, Alan?
Just the events I mentioned at the beginning, pumpkin walk this week, pickleball
that?
tourney, pumpkin smash. 27th, that's a Friday, pumpkin drop, 28th, pumpkin tosses, 28th, those are the Saturdays. Pumpkin carnival that night. Harry Potter party, that's on that Monday, October 30th, at 5 to 8 p.m. Then after that, it's general election, QPR night. I need to follow up with them. I think we're still waiting to hear back from the Bear River Health Department on the specific night. They'll come in, sorry, that's the suicide prevention training. And then Christmas party, shop with the cop. Those are the other events coming up after that.
I got two road questions for you quickly.
Yeah.
The one on Fourth East, I know, and I think it's all in Logan, but they're milling that road
Mhm.
from 14th. Is that coming into North Logan at all?
No, because our road is pristine.
Right,
Yeah,
yours is pretty
At
good.
that
Thank
point.
I get that. The other thing with CMPO and all that, they just did all their awards. Didn't we put in an application on Second East with Logan from 18th up there to Culvers? Did that get accepted or?
So that was our engineering design this last round of funding, which is a good question because that project goes between Logan and North Logan.
Right, covers both.
It goes from 18th north, south, just past Culvers
Right.
going into Logan. And so that design is a 5-lane, a median,
Yeah.
2
'cause
lanes in each
right there at
direction.
Culvers is a mess. And when we approved Culvers, it included a right-hand turn lane to be built to turn east on 14th. So
So,
I'm just wondering where is it in its progress?
so right now it's in design. So we do design and then once we're done with the design, we have to go back to the COG and request funding for
Purchase property and
construction.
all that. Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
a
that-
joint application, right?
Yeah,
This time
yes,
Logan
and that'll be
has-
very expensive. One thing that we do need to ensure though is that taking it south of there, that goes to the south of Culvers, another couple hundred feet on
Yeah.
that road. And so it can't end right there with 5 lanes. So Logan's
Right,
gonna have
they're gonna
to
have to do
take
some
that all the
merges.
way to
Yeah.
10th north.
And we've had those conversations at
How
least with
close is it
Logan.
gonna come up to those Devonshire apartments? Does it include any demolition of those apartments or is it? right
Oh,
on
no.
their doorstep?
No takings of property, well, property like frontages, we might have to discuss and negotiate. No taking of actual physical buildings or
Okay.
anything else.
It's gonna be close to them. It's gonna be right up on their doorstep.
It won't be that bad because
Oh, is
across
it?
the street you have Walmart and it's a very vacant portion of Walmart, so it can kind
Okay.
of slide a little bit to the west through that area.
Good.
Which
Well, I'm
is
glad
kind
it's
of a
still moving
win-win.
forward, 'cause, yeah, it's a mess over there on the
Yeah.
Logan side.
It's bad throughout that whole area.
Are you gonna ask them about the stop sign on 3100?
No. Please leave the stop signs on 3100
12th
and
East.
12th East as they are.
They,
Can't wait for you to. retire.
But maybe you could
Flip
put
around.
like lights around it that change color based on the holiday.
With solar panels.
I love that. I want
Just
that at my
saying.
house, Joni.
Think forward in this.
and like the
conversation.
HOV lane, if it sees you coming and you paid a fee, it will switch. So
It's a
you,
really
You say
great idea.
HOV line on 3100?
yeah,
Yeah,
if you pay, you, the stop sign switch to
Bypass.
you, so you can just keep going through. Buzzy.
That's what Buzzy wants.
man, this is inventive. Okay, I'm gonna regain control of this. I don't, do we need a recess before we go into executive? Okay,
Motion to move to exec.
Okay.
right, motion by Buzzy to move into executive. Why, Buzzy?
Huh?
Why would we move into
Oh,
executive session?
to discuss, hang on. To discuss any pending litigation or potential property acquisition.
Okay.
I'll second.
So motion by Buzzy, second by Joni, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion is unanimous.
Who's getting the door? I'll go. You guys are, okay, I'll get it. Going to get it? All right, Scott's getting it.